No.
Right, let's get this motorcade rolling. Hello, welcome to the honest-wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. Welcome to Stream Sheet Day 233, 4, 5. I'm joined by, but it's the Age of Sigmar Stat Center show today, by my co-host, that's right, Owen. They say he's the man Jackson. Hello, sir, how are you?
I'm good. You're the only person who says I'm the man. I suppose I am a man, but no, I'm great.
Do you want to let everyone know about your socks? Because that's one of that. For me, that's like big dick energy. Yeah, okay. You just wear socks. What socks you got?
We've got like a classic Carhartt plain black bit of gold branding with a black Nike. That's today's look. Pretty classic. Yeah. You know what they say, black slimming as well, right?
Yeah, I've always wanted to slim my calves. That's always been an area of concern to me.
Yeah. I think that was a very Victorian concern, right? Whoever's got the sexiest calves, they get the chicks. Is that how it works? I think that's how it works.
Imagine that's the thing. Imagine you and the boys. You just put your wigs on, yeah? Just like, Reginald, how am I looking? And it's like, your calves are hot fire, babe.
Talk when you look ravishing.
Ravishing. I can't wait to meet some poor girls and show my calves. Anyway, everyone, hello everyone. Welcome to the show. We've got a tall glass of OJ with us. And of course, me. Thanks everyone for listening to the podcast. Please stay hydrated. And thank you to everyone who came on Patreon. Literally couldn't live without you. You are the salt in my veins. So thanks for being heroic. Today we're going to talk about events. Maybe. That might be what we're talking about. We're not. I'm going to blow the lead real quick because there are no events of note that have happened around the world today. So, or we've seen none available on. I've seen none available online. So we're just going to talk about a specific event, and we're going to talk about a bunch of lists that happened, that are an ongoing event. Is that right? But before we do that, Owen, how you been? What's been going on?
Yeah, good. I've been kind of filling my brain with Warhammer as usual. Obviously, lockdown in the UK, so no in-person games and things like that. So yeah, in general, I've been good. I had a lovely chat with, I think he might be in the chat today, I'm not sure, but Matthew MJ Pegasus. We had a little TTS sort of learning game yesterday afternoon, which was just a really nice way to spend a Sunday afternoon. We had Alariel stayed on the table for more than one turn, and we both got to do some things. Yeah, man, it was not kind of not the most cutting edge competitive lists we played, but it was fun. So that was really nice. And then I've actually been watching quite a lot of Warhammer. One of the really good things about TTS, with the different Discord channels and things, is that you can watch people's games. If they want to stream their game, you can just sit back and watch. So I watched lots of Warhammer this weekend, specifically from the tournament that we're gonna talk about. Yeah, so the Butcher's Buffet tournament, which we did the list review, or we had a look at a few of the lists a couple of weeks ago.
We did,
and I think then collectively between us, we figured there wasn't really much point in having a look at the results after one round. Because anyone can beat anyone first round. You might get a really good draw, but after two games, if we have a little look at the team, the players and the lists that have won both, then there's a bit of learning in there, isn't there? So yeah, but no, I'm good. I think, Rob. How are you?
No. I'm with you. So my weekend has been. It's like Saturday night. I was there in front of my computer. I was like, I bet anyone else would consider my weekend to have been very, very dull. But I did nothing but take notes on the Marathi book that just came out, and then I've just been breaking down lists, and and honestly, I'm trying to. I've said this on the show a couple of times. I'm trying to quiet the noise of the world around me a little bit, and just really focus on my job, which is this, and just do a better job. I feel like one of the things that. This is a personal moment, so I'm just sharing with you all. But this is what it's for. I feel like I've been too loud without really putting anything in. If that makes, I've been putting out instead of putting in a lot. So I've been spending a lot of time trying to be learn, as well, learn and grow. And I've had a really, really great weekend. I want to say a big thank you to Simon Froley specifically. He made a great suggestion tonight because there's a lot of information in that Marathi book that we're going to do on the show tonight. And I was like, fuck, this is just so much to keep in your head. And he's like, just split up into 2 weeks. And I was just like, yeah, fuck yeah, that's a great call. So we are because I kind of want it to be new friendly, but also like then do the deep dive. And normally when we do the new friendly stuff, I think well enough, or sometimes we give, I would say, analytical opinion, but we don't do the what's the right word? We don't do like I don't give my working out. I don't show my working out behind it. And so tonight I'm going to try and do some more working out. But I've just had a great time. Like the list I'm going to look at today from the butcher's thing. I think analyzing these lists and taking the time to like really deep dive the information that's available is really valuable, and I'm really enjoying it as an experience. I feel like I'm like learning more as a gamer, and I'm learning more as like an analyst, and it's just a really fun experience. So I'm really good. Not an interesting weekend. I just read Warhammer stuff for an entire weekend. That's it. But I enjoyed it. I ate a lot of jam. That's my weekend.
It sounds perfect.
It was
sounds
pretty
fucking
perfect.
Brilliant.
I refused phone calls. People are like, I'll call you. Oh, no, I did a podcast with the Rage of Sigmar. That was really fun, where everyone is Johan. So I really enjoyed that. Can I just say thank you to Lois Jean Labelle, who's joined us for his first time here from Canada, which is fun. Hey to Nikos, what up? Hawkeye, Born Again Manchild, Tristan, fuck you, Rob. Wow. You should lay off the jam, Rob. I don't want to have to visit the dentist again. I know, I agree.
There was one question I saw in the chat, Rob, which I'm sure you would want to catch up on. It's a chap called Dalinar. He says he's new to AOS. Anyone know if the new Shadow and Pain set is a decent way to start for either of those armies? I think personally, the snakes is going to be a steal, especially if you can split that box with somebody and maybe get it from somewhere that gives 20% off. But yeah, 10 snakes and the character, and I think you get some harpies in there as well. I think that's
like if you want to see the thing to blow the lead on the show a little bit tonight. If you want to play a bunch of snakes, that's a really viable way to play, but it's not going to be like a 5-0 tournament list. Like the snakes inherently lack some of the most key elements that you really, really want in the DOK list, specifically like the hags, like they're the bread and butter, and like the quintessential reason the list really, really works, even if you take out Morathi. But the snakes are cool. Like, it's really fun. It's just a bit of like, the snake half is good, but you need to try and unload the Slanesh half, because what's weird about the Slanesh half is you've got the Mortals hero, who's not particularly good, and then a bunch of like demon bits.
Yeah, I think as Cabbage says in the chat, I think if you wanted to go for like a starter Slanesh force, then the Slanesh half of Wrath and Rapture was probably a better deal, wasn't it?
Yes,
I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Those boxes are cool though. If you want to like get into something, like it's a good start. The thing about like the thing about the Daughters of Khaine half of it versus the Chaos half of it is Chaos is such an expansive. Like, you're like, okay, I've got 3 Chaos units. Like, sweet. You need about 37 more Chaos units. Cheeky Be'lakor, just in case. Have you got Archeon? Maybe. Bought a Chaos Sorcerer Lord yet? Not yet. Like, have you got any Marauders? I need them. Maybe some Untamed Beasts? What the fuck is going on now? Well, Blue Scribes. Yeah, I like them in. You got a Kairos. You're like, I want to play one army. I'm like, no, Chaos is all of the armies together in like a sexy jam sandwich pie. That's what it is. It is delicious, isn't it? Like you and me were talking last night. I was like, do you know, are there any other priests in Slave Starlish? And you were like, fuck knows. Like, there's tons.
Let's go digging. Yeah, Chaos is amazing. Like, I remember my first ever tournament, like for Team Wales, was Blood Tithe. And I remember Darren Watson was there taking some bonkers mixed Chaos list, and it did seem like it's not a kind of first. Chaos doesn't seem like a first army kind of thing, unless you go very God specific and you stick just within that book. But it's like one of those things, like you peel the layers of the onion off, and Chaos just keeps, giving you more and more and more. I think as a starter army, I think Daughters is great, and there's more, like, even from taking it outside of like thinking about competitive nature of the game and things like that. The models, those snake models, are wicked.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
if you
wicked.
Like, or sort of like, it reminds me of the Jason and the Argonauts kind of Medusa kind of vibe. Yeah. They've got a real sort of old school Ray Harryhausen vibe to them, which I love. I think they look awesome.
No, I agreed. Like, absolutely. Like, they are very, and also what's nice about them, there's elite models. They're a little bit chunkier to paint. They've still got some nice detail on them, so you can learn a lot from like collecting that army, which I think is good. Thank you to Idiot Wind and also Stu Flynn, who I finally learned his name, for subscribing, and everyone else. Also, everyone really happy, Owen, that your hairdresser seems to have caught up with you.
Yeah, finally. Cheers. I think that was.
I think they're just being mean.
I've been through some funny looks through lockdown. Somebody said that I looked like a transgender Princess Leia. Somebody texted me to say that I looked like that, which is, it's a strong look, but it wasn't what I was going for, I must say.
I mean, that's a bold look. That's exactly what I might be. I was very, very tempted today, or maybe maybe tomorrow, to shave the mustache in for November, just because I've never done one. But I just like the beard too much, and I worry what all of you would say. Specifically, all of you, specifically Chris in the chat and Hawkeye. All right, so no events of the weekend that we know of note, and so okay, we can't really learn much from that. But what we can do is we can look at some of the lists that occurred at this butcher's event that you were talking about, and some of the ones that went well. So let me just get up the shot so you guys can see. Hold on. Let me just do this. Yeah, you guys should be able to see something on your screen now. It might not be perfect, which I should sort that out. Do better. There we go. Okay, so I'm already looking at my Tzeentch list, but just looking at this list, this event so far. Do you know what? This is really fun, Owen. I would love to do this at an event where we're just we're in round two's just happened. Let's take a look at some of the lists and then just deep dive. But it takes a lot. It's taken me an hour and a half to really go through the Tzeentch list this morning, and you're going to do the daughters list. Took you a while as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, and I think that there's things that you miss, with all the synergies and things, especially with a complex book. But yeah, you're right. It's I've actually really enjoyed following this tournament. I kind of obviously the tournaments, the little one days that I've put on, they're essentially 3 games one day. But having these 5 games split over 5, he's up to 6 games, I think, because of the quantity of players. But having it split over 6 weeks, you're right. It kind of stretches what would normally be played over a weekend. It stretches it over such a long period that. I'm able to, you're able to sort of dig into the lists in between each round, and also it has that feeling of, someone described it as every game is game 4, because obviously on the Saturday night of a 2-dayer, especially if you're doing quite well and you're 3-0 or 2-1, and you have your players that go out on the lash, and then you have your other players who go back to their hotel room and they just research the hell out of their first, their opponent on that Sunday morning. I'm guilty of that. And every round of this is like that game 4 Sunday morning, because you've got anything from a couple of days to a whole week to research your opponent's list. So there's I don't know if it even makes it ever so slightly different tournament, because it does take away that surprise factor. And with TTS, you can practice your deployments. I watched a game last night with a friend of mine, and he'd already practiced his turn 1 deployment and the potential for how the next turn was going to go. And yeah, I think it definitely, the format definitely benefits the people who want to do the research and put in the work. So yeah, it's really good. And yeah, like you say, when we don't have many tournaments going on, it gives us an opportunity to have a look at this sort of midway through. It's almost like there's a pause on the tournament, isn't there?
Well, you bring up an important point. You're bringing up an important point in the chat. Also, James Brown over on YouTube says, just first time I've caught it live. Big shout out to Owen. He makes me laugh every time he's on. There you go.
That's nice.
That's some big love.
And
Nikos says, I love Game 4 research. So you played your 3 games. It's Saturday night. Some lads are out on the lash. My favourite one is if you're ever out in the nightclub Saturday night with the guys, there's everyone. Some people are dancing. Some people are dancing with their phone out, just kind of so yeah, what does Hearthguard do to the other fella? Yeah. I've seen that more than once. That's definitely a thing. And then confidence. It's you say to your mate and everyone's had a drink. It's should I talk to us? Yeah. Do this text. That's going to be the text. That's the one. You're sweet. And then last night, and then it's the Sunday morning. And then what did he say last night to do? Okay, charge these units in. Okay, all right, I'm going to do that. It's turns out that was stupid and he was drunk and we're all idiots.
He hasn't sent me the information on the list that I asked him. He's just sent me a picture of his bum.
Hey Akarai, welcome to the show. What's the saying? Fail to prepare, prepare to fail. There you go, Owen. And also, it reminds me a lot. Again, I know I talked about this a lot last week. Reminds me about what happened last week when I was talking about chess. We talked about this a bit last night. Obviously, watching the Queen's Gambit, that ability to prepare is useful. Really to strategize. Right. Okay. So, do you want to talk about the DOK list first, or do you want me to talk about the Tzeentch list?
I'm feeling a little hoarse, so you go ahead with yours. It's the top list as we speak. He's gleaned more points than anybody else so far. So you lead us into the world of Tzeentch, please.
Okay, all right. So you guys should be able to see this. This is Clay Francais, Clay Francais. So he's running now. The reason I really like this list, and I do really like this list, and the more you look at it, the more interesting it is. Because I played Tzeentch quite a bit. I played Change Host. I played like Mixed Tzeentch, and there's a lot to say about it. Specifically, I know a criticism that it comes a lot from the Tzeentch list is the horrors. You're like, oh god, horror. But really, the list is actually got a lot. It's got a lot of limiting factors. It really doesn't have like a punch unit. It does consistent damage over time with flamers. Absolutely. Yeah, it really, really does. I'm not disputing that, but that's consistent damage over time with a fairly glass cannon unit. Whereas they don't have a block that can go and punch. They don't have that 30 Zangor block anymore. It just can't fight the same as everything else. Carrick Acolytes can't do the same. Enlightened, they have to be better by being hit first, and obviously we understand. And they've now gone up the points. Maybe there's an argument for Skyfires, but they're still crazy expensive compared to other stuff. So the army really lacks, and most importantly, the army lacks range. And when we go through this, I'm going to talk about it because I think that's actually fairly important. Ziggy says that's why you take Chaos Chosen, you gorgeous man. Maybe. Right. So he's running a Tzeentch list, and then he's running Host Duplicitous. And Host Duplicitous gives the battle traits are, don't forget you've also already got Destiny dice, and don't forget, and this I'm going to talk about this a lot, that any demons wholly within 9 inches of a demon hero are -1 to hit. Really, really important. Right, so Host of Blisters gives you the ability Rank of Mischievous Mirages. Enemy units within 3 inches of your units cannot retreat. Now this list has got a Chaos Sorcerer Lord on Manticore, Fate Weaver, Changecaster, Blue Scribes, Magister on Disc of Tzeentch, and Be'lakor, 2 units of Tempering Horrors, 10 Acolytes, Balewind Vortex, an Umbral Spell Portal, and Darkfire Demon Rift. So that's what's in the list. Now, so any of those units, if you tag a unit, they're not going to be able to retreat. But as you can see from this list, there isn't a combat monster, there isn't a combat unit. It doesn't have, and it also doesn't have the range of something like Sentinels. So it's not able to pick units out at a significant range. We'll talk about that in a minute. This entire army is like a mid-board army. So mainly it does significant damage at anything in 18 inches. But then if you're outside 18 inches, you're just singing and dancing, because you can't touch anything. And what's important, it does most of that damage in the hero phase. So if you are a savvy player, you're just going to run out of it, which I really like this list. There's so much to talk about. It's really, really good, because it's been that problem that, because I played this army before, Owen, really, you got your Lord of Change, and you're like, right, I've got the Lord of Change's base spell, and then you've got Tzeentch's Firestorm or Bolt of Tzeentch or something on him. You're like, anything gets in 18 inches, it's just taking mortal wounds. And then just nothing is ever in 18 inches. It's just because it happens in my hero phase. So in your movement phase, just don't be there and you're safe. There's very little I can do about it.
That's why he's got the Umbral Spell Portal then, right?
It is, okay. But the Umbral Spell Portal allows for one spell. You're not doing Hand of Dust. You're not doing the one spell that's going to defeat the opponent's army. It's not Technado, is it?
No, but I think Kairos' spell is scary though, right? Isn't that the flat 6 mortal wounds?
It is a flat 6 mortal wounds. There's a bunch of those in here as well. And when we get into the 18-inch range, it's a terrifying army. Absolutely, which is what. But the problem is getting into that 18-inch range and not just getting smashed. Having Stonehorns run at you, or Mortek run at you, or whatever it might be, running into the midfield and being able to hold for a turn, maybe 2 turns because of the priority, and then start doing all your damage. So, I think Clay has done a really good job of breaking this down. So normally you see a Lord of Change, normally you see a Change Host, but we're throwing that away for a minute. in this situation, he's taken a Chaos Sorcerer Lord and Manticore, which is super cool for a bunch of reasons. Because I personally think that Lord Change is a bit guff. You're spending loads of points for a 2-cast wizard who like has got some like an ability to turn a dice higher and can eat another spell. Which you lose 1 cast on the Chaos Sorcerer Lord and Manticore, but you don't really care because you're in Host Duplicitous, which allows you, because your command ability, the command trait is you can reroll casting and unbinding rolls for any demon wizards while they're wholly within 9.
Okay.
Right? Which is better. The reroll is way better than the flip 1 dice. Like, I'll argue that till the end of time. I don't know if anyone can do the maths for me, but that is the for me, that's way better. The reroll, like it gives you 2 chances to proc higher. I don't know if there's like some actual maths on that, but like I think it's way better. And it's also kind of wasted on the Lord of Change because now like you're paying points to make the Lord of Change spellcasting better. So then you're in Host Duplicitous and you're re-rolling it. It makes it way more reliable, but whatever. And he's also got Kairos in the list as well. But let's stick on the Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Manticore. So it's cheaper. And the important part is he's made it way more survivable because you've got the Brand of the Spirit Demon, which is an artifact, so it's +1 save to the bearer. But because he's a Chaos Sorcerer Lord on Manticore, because you put a Chaos Sorcerer Lord in, you've now got reroll saves from Ocular Vision, which you don't have to do anything to cast that. So he's got a 3-up rerollable save character that's pretty decent. Like,
oh yeah, he's solid, and he can fight a little bit as well, right? When the time comes.
Yeah, a lot more than Lord Change. Well, a lot more. About the same as Lord Change, probably. I'm over-egging that. But he's also got a really good spell. Like, his spell is a horde clearing spell, which also you lack, generally, in the Tzeentch list, so you're allying that in, so that you roll a dice for every model in a unit within 18 inches, and then on a 6+, on a 5+, they take a mortal wound, on a 6+, it's D3 mortal wounds. So, that's decent for clearing hordes, right?
Yeah,
which, again, is a problem for the Tzeentch list, because Flamers normally do that job, but even then, it's like, not quite. They do, but they kind of don't. It's a bit weird, really. They do everything well, but they're not like specifically designed for that. Anyway, so I think that's good because he's given himself a survivable caster that's re-rolling all those casts for everything else, and then he's got 10 casts in the list. So he's got the other thing, sorry. He's got Law of Fate, he's got Arcane Suggestion. So it's cast on at 8. Obviously, you can re-roll it. You can pick... This is really, really important, sorry. Key piece that I'm just ignoring. So sorry. Cast on at 8, and obviously you could use some Destiny Dice if you really, really wanted to put... But you pick a target unit within 18 inches. They suffer D3 mortal wounds, and you can make a -1 to hit and -1 to wound rolls or -1 to save rolls. So because you're playing, and I don't know if we talk about it enough, but because you're playing Tzeentch, that ability to make it so that units don't take a -1 to hit. So this pink horror is now a -1 to hit because you've got some demon hero nearby, and now you've picked an offensive unit that's in your opponent's army and it's -2 to hit. Where this is nice and it like and -1 to wound, and then where this doubles up super nice. Let me just get this is with Be'lakor.
Yeah, enfeebling. Yeah, I was just thinking that. Oh my God.
Because then you can pick, with Be'lakor, another unit in 18 inches. You pick that unit. D-Power, thanks for subscribing, baby. He's got a spell Enfeeble, which is another -1 to wound. So now the army is -1 to hit army-wide. An enemy unit is -1 to hit as well, and -1 to wound. And then another unit could be -1 to wound as well. So he's really like shutting stuff down, not including Be'lakor, who obviously has his ability to shut units down as well. So he could potentially take out 2 major threats and make them like... I mean, 2 blocks of Hearthguard Berserkers, one could not work, and one could be -2 to hit and -2 to wound.
Yeah, and stuck in its deployment zone because you've pinned it in place with 10 pinks that you can't retreat from. So it's almost like holding, like those 2 units of 10 pinks, they're just going to hopefully hold the opponent where you want them to be held. And then all of this stuff that sits behind them, that sort of brood of sort of gribbly heroes, will then be able to just debuff and just make you not be able to fight out of the pink paper bag that you've just wrapped them in, right?
Yeah, Yeah, exactly. Which is, and that's what I'm trying to say about this list is it doesn't do what we saw with the Sentinels list a couple of weeks ago. It doesn't do loads of alpha combat. What it does is it has to play into the midboard because all of its damage that I'm about to talk about is 18-inch range, which means it needs a way to control the environment before it gets into the midboard. So obviously Host Duplicitous helps do that. Bellicor helps do that. All the minuses to hit help do that as well. But the other ways that we talk about the fact that you can do flat 6 mortal wounds from Kairos, and you can also do D3 mortal wounds from the Magister on Disc of Tzeentch, who, by the way, has got arguably one of the worst rules in the game. We'll talk about that in a minute. But both of them create spawn if you kill a model, which is another great way. Now, as far as I'm aware, those spawn won't be Host Duplicitous spawn, because summoned units don't become the...
that would be absolutely disgusting.
Oh, no, wait, they do. They do. It's when it's a battalion. Sorry, a battalion doesn't become... A new thing in a battalion doesn't become a battalion, but a new thing summoned into the core faction does.
It does become hosts. Yeah. Because it pops up, you kill the model, and it turns into a spawn, and it basically tags that unit. So somebody's got 20 Sentinels, and you just pick one off, turn it into a spawn, and then on their turn, they've got to either clear it off in the hero phase, or all of those Sentinels have to shoot the stupid spawn that's just popped up next to them.
And they can't even retreat away from it. Right? So that's cool. Right, that's super cool. That's what I mean about this list. The more you dive into it, the more play it's got. Like, it's like a high skill cap list, and it's really, really fun. Unlike Eels, important point to note. Right, so also, can we just talk about... I'm sorry if I'm talking too much, but I'm super excited by this list. I think it's wicked. The Magister on Disc of Tzeentch has got a spell where if he casts a spell on a double, he's allowed to cast another spell. But if he casts another double again, he just dies. What the fuck is that? That's a terrible rule. Did you know that?
I didn't know that. But if only they had a way of swapping out a dice to negate that.
Well, you have to do two now.
Okay. Okay.
And the Magister there does have Law of Fate, which is the Glimpse of the Future spell, which is cast on 7. You basically get a new Destiny dice. It's a great spell, and pretty much always taken as well. But again, that creating extra spawns all over the board to control movement even more. And then let's talk about the damage when you finally do get into range. So obviously, we talked about that 18-inch spell from Fate Weaver that's going to do the flat 6 mortal wounds. He's also got... that's not the one. Sorry, the Changecasters, the Beast. He's got his own War Scroll spell, which is D6 mortal wounds. He's got Bolt of Tzeentch, which is another D6 mortal wounds at 18 inches. And obviously that's a bunch of casts. And then there's Tzeentch's Firestorm, which is on the Blue Scribes, which only have to roll it a 2 up to get it to cast. So that's fine.
Easy life.
Yeah, and and that's the hardest one to cast. That's cast on a 9. So the fact that he's made it so it's not a 9, it's just a 2, and each 6 generates D3 mortal wounds. So if you proc that really well, that's a bunch. Again, though, only in that 18-inch range. So far in 18 inches, you're doing 2d6 plus flat 6 mortal wounds. You're doing D3. You're doing another D3 mortal wounds from all these characters. You spend a lot to do that, basically. And then lastly. The only other spell to talk about is the law is Kairos, who's obviously got the ability. He's got Fold Reality, which is a Tzeentch unit. It's taken some wounds. You cast Fold Reality. You can bring up to 6 back. If you roll a 1, the whole unit's wiped. So if you end up with one of those pink horror units that's been wounded pretty badly, what you're going to be able to do is just risk it for a biscuit and have the whole unit pop. And if the whole unit does pop, I mean, if you get 6 pink horrors back, you're laughing your balls off. But if you don't get 6 horrors back, you've got the command ability, which is once per game, impossible to anticipate. One of those horror units dies, you roll a dice on a 5 up, you're generating the whole unit back. So that works as well. So yeah, I mean, it's only once per battle, but and it's a 5 up, so it's not tons, but it'll happen sometimes, and it'll win games. And then lastly, you've got the Carrick Acolytes in there as well. Arguably, because he only had 100 points left. Oh, no, I haven't even talked about the big one, sorry. So you've netted everything in, right, into the midfield. Everything's netted, there's spawns everywhere, you minus to hit, you can't retreat, you don't know what's happening. And then he just throws Darkfire Demon Rift into you.
Sorry, podcast people. That's probably horrible, but that's the noise it makes when it's just flaming everything.
That's that Russian soldier who's like pinned in on all sides. Yeah, there's that one spawn, I imagine, just being pinned on all sides. He's like, drop the bombs, lads. And then Darkfire Demon Rift, if you don't know, it does D3 mortal wounds to everything it moves over. But specifically for every wizard, of which there are 9 in this list, within 12 inches, you take an additional mortal wound on top. So you can and Kairos can just eat an endless spell. So you can cast it, Kairos can eat the endless spell, and then you can recast it off one of the other wizards as well, and just keep doing spells all day forever. It's bonkers. It's really fun because, like, the Tzeentch list is a problematic list, like, when you don't just do Change Hosts and Flamers. When you, like, go out of, like, there's something a bit broken in this army, like, let's actually analyse the book. It's got a lot of weaknesses, and range, weirdly, is one of them. Movement and range. So, I think what's interesting is this seems like a list that's gone past the problem area, where it's just a list that's a problem list, and it's like tried to solve a lot of those problems in a really crafty way. Really love it. I think it's excellent. So
I think one thing to touch on as well, Rob, would be the fact that, you know, you've discussed about all of the the casting prowess, and in a meta or in a sort of environment where you've got, you know, Teclis and Croak and a few magic DOMs, all those summoning points being generated as well. And so once you finally do break through the pink crap that's everywhere on the board and the gribbly little spawns running around, and once you finally feel like you're going to be able to get to the meat, then by that point he's probably already summoned maybe another 10 pinks or some more crap in layers to cap the objectives and to protect all of the, you know, all the heroes.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing 10 casts every time with this list. You're not necessarily getting them all off, but with the rerolls, you know, like that, you could be, and you can double up on some of those. He's got Balewind, so it can be 11. You have the once per game ability to roll 3d6 on the Change Caster, so that can turn into like 2 casts from him if you happen to roll a double on the Fate Master, and then he kills himself, God knows. But like, he can be up to like 12 or 13 casts on the first turn, like, which is 12 or 13 summoning points, and your opponent does nothing, and fairly reliably. Like, but you probably don't get them all off. It's fun. It's a fun list, and I think what I really like about it is its playability. Like, you're playing a lot of that, like, and it would feel crap to be on the end of. Like, someone's like, you're like Spawn, you're like, fuck, you're like, can't move them now. Oh God.
Also, I did have a quick look while you were discussing the list, Rob.
Rattling.
And he's no, it's great. It's brilliant. It means that I don't have to talk, which I'm sure the audience is really happy about. Yeah, he's not had a walkover in 2 games. He's beaten Lumineth and Dracothian's Tail Seraphon list with Croak, Slan, and Salamanders and 40 Skinks. So he's beaten a couple of the big bads at the moment. So yeah.
And to be fair, Tzeentch are one of the big bads. But Tzeentch are normally one of the big bads in a very specific build. Like, it's very specific. This is not that. The Acolytes being in there, the Magister you never see. You rarely see Blue Scribes. Like, you never see the Chaos Sorcerer, Lord of Manticore. So it's like super unique. So it's like, and it's very adaptable. Like, I'm excited by this list. Like, I'd play this list. Like, and probably fuck it up a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely one that has to be played, not piloted, right? You don't just put the models on the table and then their war scrolls do the lifting for you, and you just got to roll some dice and move stuff around. You know, you've got to. It's obviously super strong. Bellacor's ability is just universally amazing. So, you know, there are things in there which just happen, but at the same time, it's got 80 wounds. If you look at it, you know, we know that the pinks are essentially 50, but when you look at it on War Scroll Builder, it's got 80 wounds, which normal wisdom is that's not enough to win a game of Age of Sigmar, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And it's also a high drop, which is also normal wisdom that's a problem as well, especially with things like KO, Lumineth, all those guys, and in a Tzeentch mirror. So there's lots of problems there. Maybe it'll come up against that. And also Marcus Rock makes a really good point in the chat that also we haven't talked about just the core allegiance abilities, -1 to hit on demons, and also the destiny dice. So if you really want something to happen, those destiny dice being a thing is real. And that's a mechanic which And honestly, it's interesting how we call this cool and other stuff as non-interactive. Marcus Rock, the thing about this list versus maybe some other stuff is a lot of this feels like it's choice orientated. Why I find this list interesting. The Sentinel stuff where you just do the thing feels very like that feels non-interactive to me. In this situation, I feel like you could fuck this up a lot. Like there's a lot of options going on in this list, and the guy piloting it can fuck it up a lot. I genuinely think but you know, never know. Anyway, okay, but fair enough. Some people think in the chat that it is non-interactive, and that's fair. But Be'lakor definitely shutting down your stuff is. I did talk about this yesterday. I don't like the shark ability because it means you can't pile in. I don't like anything that means you can't do something. Be'lakor does that as well, so I think it's probably fair to put them in parity and discuss those together. So I think, yeah, that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
That is a fair point. I think I can be a little bit guilty sometimes of, you know, you sort of you discount stuff straight away. Oh God, he's playing Croak sort of thing. And perhaps then when you see something that's a bit different, but yeah, I'd probably be not raging, but once you play that and yeah, not being able to retreat is really, yeah, there's some you can win turn one with that list. So I think that is a fair point on that. But I suppose we sometimes gravitate towards things that you don't often see, and then that will then make it look like it's cool. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but also Tim says in the chat, and I'd like to reinforce this. There's one spell portal. I get it. There's one. But everything else, and Be'lakor's ability, those are the two things that affect you at range. Everything else is 18 inches. So you can also dance around it. And also it's not got a good... it's got the pink horrors and the acolytes, but that's it. Everything else is then just like meaty goodness at the back of the board. So I think it's weak in a bunch of different ways to some of the more aggressive lists that are out there. So I think... Yeah, I agree with everyone, but I also think that this has got a lot more playability. Which is maybe why I'm excited about it, because it feels like this is something you're playing as opposed to just the army's doing its thing. Like when you're just firing Mortek crawlers, you're just doing that.
Yeah. And I mean, things like, we've talked in depth about the debuffs and the minuses to hit, but, you know, Sentinels don't care about minuses to hit. They just do more wounds, right? And I've just had a quick look, actually. The Lumineth list he beat had 20 Sentinels, 2 units of 10.
Only 20, baby.
Yeah, so... You know, there are a lot of armies that have the tools to take that apart. But,
and also, what I like about it, I like the idea that he doesn't do like the 6 mortal wounds. He does the 6 mortal wounds, but he does it on the skinks to pin the skink screen in early on. You can still teleport the skink screen, yeah. But I like that, because messing with skinks is hard.
Also, a list with a ton of options is really it can be quite difficult to play because you end up having a bit of analysis paralysis. You know, you can have so many options that it's like a house of cards that can come crumbling down when you've got so many options and so many layers, and you can do something out of sequence and then you fucked your whole turn rather than just go, here's my models, now they kill you, sort of thing. Anyway, I don't know.
But everyone in the chat is right. Like there is some strength here and also some negative play experience here. So I agree with you all, absolutely. But still fun. Big shout out on that list. So what did you look at?
I looked at the next chap down, who is called Chenandez.
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 Is he the guy on the skateboard listening to?
What? Drinking something. No, I don't think it's that guy.
I fucking love it if it was that guy as well. If he was filming one hand, drinking, and then writing his AOS list on the other.
There's a brilliant video. Have you seen Mick Fleetwood from Fleetwood Mac doing that? He's like coasting around his little estate. He's obviously in some amazing house in Los Angeles, and he's got a huge bottle of cranberry juice, and he's listening to Fleetwood Mac floating around either on like a Segway or some kind of motorized vehicle. And you need that in your life. Anyway, no, so that I don't think it's him, and I don't think he was in Fleetwood Mac, but he has got a wonderful Daughters of Khaine list. And he hasn't lost yet. So, yeah, let's have a little look. Now, I have to admit, I played a shitload of tournaments, but I sort of started playing AOS after Daughters were really the hotness. So I've never played against Daughters of Khaine at a tournament. Again, people look at the headline like daughters are really, really good, but then you have to look into sort of why. So I've just used this as an opportunity once again to just learn. So if I go through the list, I don't know if you've got it up on screen, Rob.
I have.
Wonderful. So much like we saw, I believe it was Ethan in the Super Series. Am I getting his name right?
Yeah,
He brought a Daughters of Khaine Calibron list, and I have seen Calibron pop up a couple of times. Excuse me.
Is that when people put thralls in their list and try and they're like, I tried.
Yeah.
I think that's.
Well, it's like, yeah, okay. So there is always that with wargamers that and I'm guilty. There's the thing that's really, 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 really good, and then you go, but if I just take this, there's the left field pick, isn't there? There's the hipster pick, where people want to try something. But
the new hipster pick being 80 dark shards. It's the new hipster pick.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, super hipster. You got to be really in it to win it. But
tell me about that.
Anyway, sorry.
No, you're okay. So so this is when we talk about Daughters of Khaine, generally Daughters of Khaine, and then in brackets you've got Hagnar. Hagnar was the pick. Hagnar was the list that you saw. The sub faction that you saw players, such as like Benjamin Sava and Ben Curry, doing really, really well with that list. So, but Calibron not so much. So Calibron in the meta, Calibron is a really good pick. So, looking at the lists now. Yeah, Chenanders. He's beaten Lumineth in both rounds.
Congratulations.
So yeah, Daughters of Khaine. I don't want to patronise anybody, and there are much better players like Smorgan who could come on and wax lyrical about Daughters. But just as a quick headline, they've got a blood rights table, which is like that cumulative buff table, whereby each turn they have a new buff and they all stack on top of each other. So not like the Tides of Death with the Ideneth, whereby round 1 you have this, round 2 you have this. So basically the blood rights table just makes your army more and more and more efficient by giving you more and more rerolls. I won't go into that in depth, but so you've got an army which is great in the late game, because by that point they're fully buffed to the nines. And then the other allegiance ability they get is Fanatical Faith. So that's just an army-wide 6-up DPR. Generally the list, as their elves, they don't have very good saves, so an additional 6-up is very nice. Now Calibron, what you get from that is you get the concealment and stealth ability. So much like we waxed lyrical about Stuart Iron Guts McCowan and his Winter Bite, where he had -1 to hit in shooting in his territory, this is just -1 to hit the whole army board wide in shooting phase. So
very relevant at the moment.
Very relevant.
Which is maybe why we've seen the rise of Calibron and more people taken.
I think so, yeah. And then you stack that with your Lookout Sir, and you've got -2 to hit on those small buff characters who are the key, right? You've got to protect those little characters.
They are the croissants of a breakfast. Integral.
Yes. Just saw into your perfect breakfast thing. Now, what else Calibron gives you is the Mistress of Illusion command trait. That's a unit within 7 inches of the general, who in this list is the Slaughter Queen on foot. She essentially, in the hero phase, start of the hero phase, a unit within 7 inches that's more than 3 inches away. So it's not in combat, it's just a teleport. So you just can pick them up and put them anywhere on the board outside of 9. No CP, no dice, just go over there. Which, again, you look at the Seraphon, sort of restriction-free teleport, it's really powerful. So as long as you're within 7 inches of that Slaughter Queen, you can be picked up and dropped. So that's what Calibron gives you, the two abilities, a teleport, always great, and -1 to hit for the whole army in shooting. So big tick on those two. Currently, teleport's always strong. Great. Then looking through the list, you've got a Bloodbath Medusa who's got the Shadow Stone. That gives reroll. It's the only caster in the list, and because he's taken a battalion, he has 2 artifacts. So he's got the Shadow Stone, which gives rerolls to cast, reroll 1s to cast, and also +1 to cast for the lore spell that they've chosen, which is Mind Razor. Mind Razor, again, anybody who's played Daughters, that's one of the key spells. It's going to give an additional rend on melee attacks, and also +1 damage if they've got lower bravery. Obviously, that doesn't come into it too much these days, perhaps unless you're fighting like a cities list or maybe Lumineth, but they're not particularly high bravery elves anyway. So it's not really necessary. You won't get the double damage off too much, but it's the rend. Getting a rend onto those Sisters of Slaughter is fantastic. And then the Medusa has a -1 to wound spell, which again, she's got the Be'lakor spell basically, 18 inches, -1 to wound. The Hag Queen has classic prayer, Blessing of Khaine. Now, again, within this Daughter's army, you've got prayers, which are your opponent can't interact with them. As a Khorne player, I know how strong the prayers are. Slaves of the Darkness players with their war shrines, super powerful. So the prayer that the Hag Queen's taken is Blessing of Khaine, which is a re-rollable 6-up DPR. So they get a 6-up, 6-up for a unit, which again, more efficiency. I think the key thing with the Daughters lists that do really well is the level of efficiency that they have. Both the Hag Queens, both the Hag Queens. So there's a named Hag Queen from the Underworld's Warband, and then there's a regular Hag Queen. They both have Witch Brew, which is, again, no dice, point at a unit in the hero phase, re-rolling wounds, and battle shock immunity. Super powerful.
Yeah, the re-roll wounds is super important. And again, like you were saying, with normally you see Hagnar in round 3 also got re-roll hits on all of their models as well. So you got reroll wounds and reroll hits, but like that reroll wounds is super important because the slaughter hit on 4s. Oh, sorry, wound on 4s.
Yeah. And they're getting rerolls to their hits pretty early in the Blood Rights table. I think you get reroll 1s in maybe round 2. So again, there's some real efficiency there. They've taken I keep seeing her pop up, Morgwaith the Bloodied, with her what are they called, the Blade Coven.
Yes.
Now, I think the main reason, she's a Hag Queen again. She has, she's a Hag Queen. She has a Witch Brew. She's taken Catechism of Murder, which is 6s exploding. So again, with rerolls, that's more attacks. But the reason why I think you see her a lot is that much like Croak or Necromancers, there's quite a few models that have the ability to pass wounds off. So I think always those Hag Queens have got a target on their foreheads. So the ability to pass off wounds, it's an ability called Daughters of the First Temple. She can allocate wounds to her Blade Coven on a 4-up. So just a bit more survivability there.
I was thinking about this today. It reminds me a lot of like Mean Girls. Obviously, you've got like the chief queen Mean Girl in Marathi, but if you just ignore her and take out her attendants, which really support the system of institutionalized aggressive bullying that the Marathi effectively lets happen, you take away her support structure and power base, and then it all falls apart. So yeah, the Hag Queens are generally hit on. I
think that works, Rob. I'm proud of you. That was a really good analogy there.
Thank you so much. I managed to mix 3 things in there. I'm really happy with that.
And then we have the General, who is a Slaughter Queen on foot. She's the lady with the 2 knives above her head and the wonderful barnet. So she has the Master of Illusion, Mistress of Illusion. She is the one that can proc the teleport. She's got an Iron Circlet for rerolling 1s on her prayers. And she's taken Martyr's Sacrifice, which is like a 5-up mortal wound bounce. So if you kill any models, a bit like a Plague Monk or something like that, when they die, roll a dice, 5-up on a mortal wound. They bounce a mortal wound. And most importantly, her command ability is the Orgy of Slaughter, which is a hero phase pilot and attack. So they can teleport in the hero phase, they can fight in the hero phase, and they can be buffed up to the 9s, like a frenzied bunch of death ladies. So essentially there's a really nice suite of heroes there. Obviously, it's been noted in the chat, I think, about how they're pretty, even with -2 from Lookout Sir, they are quite squishy little heroes, little elven heroes. But if you can keep those heroes alive, then there's a whole load of tech in there. Excuse me. The rest of the list, we have 2 units of 30 Sisters of Slaughter. We have 10 Witch Elves, and then we have 20 Blood Sisters, and 2 units of 5 Kinnerai heart renders. And the Slaughter Queen, the Sisters of Slaughter, and the heart renders, they sit within the Slaughter Troop Battalion, which again was much seen, and I think that formed the core of Benjamin's successful list. So, Sisters of Slaughter, I think if you want to see how to play Sisters of Slaughter, I think Benjamin's game against Joe at Bobo, when Joe was playing pre-nerf Slanesh,
Yep.
I think that was a bit of a masterclass in how to use the Sisters. So they can run and charge, they can retreat and charge, they can pile in and activate from 6 inches, and with the loadout that he's given them, they have 3 attacks per model. So you're talking about 90 attacks from a unit that, as I say, run and charge, retreat and charge, pile in and activate from 6. You can run and then just pile in. You basically get to dictate the combat phase if you play it well.
And immune to battle shock as well, so that's important.
Yes. Yeah. So that means that you can
hit on 3s, rerolling 1s, wound on 4s, rerolling is nuts.
Yeah. With a rend. And then on top of that, we've got what will often be seen these days, I think, which is a nice brick of 20 Blood Sisters. So they are an 8-inch move. They've got 2-inch range on their sort of spears. And that's out of that unit, that's 60 attacks, 3s and 3s, rend 1 damage. And then they have another 20, well, they get 1 attack per sister, which is a crystal touch, just a 4-up for a mortal wound. So, yeah, that's a scary unit, right? Especially with all the buffs, those Blood Sisters.
Yeah, like the Blood Sisters are really, really good. They've now taken a nerf in. They've kind of got a buff and a nerf in the update from Morathi. Whereas one of the things that you could do with the Blood Sisters is you could give them additional attacks, which would affect their Crystal Touch, which is an attack in their old War Scroll, specifically this War Scroll. Their new War Scroll, it becomes an ability. So you've now got like an eel attack sort of thing where you roll a dice for each one of it. So that you would roll 20 dice.
Oh, like an evocator or a Colonel Hunter, you sort of channel.
Exactly. So you can't keep stacking the crystal touches now, which you previously could do. So they've lost some combat effectiveness, and whether or not that changes up how effective they've gained an attack though. So it's kind of like, like which is better, which is not. And yeah, correct, Wargaming Dad. It's at the end of the combat phase as well, as opposed to when you fight. So you if you get the charge off, you do all your attacks, they hit you back, and then you do your crystal touch attacks after. So that's unfortunate. The interesting thing about this whole list for me is it's the core conversation that you have about the Daughters of Khaine book. Do I or do I not include Morathi? Which has become even more of a conversation, obviously, since the launch of the Morathi book. It's always the convo. Because if you look at this, it's a fuck ton of models. So there's 60 Sisters of Slaughter, which are like elite combat units. It's 20 Blood Sisters, which is 480 points. But the important point here is that you then end up with those 2 units of 5 Heart Renders, which are like you speak to a
they're like Chef Kiss, right?
Yeah, mwah, mwah.
They're probably in the top 10 standalone book scrolls, right?
Exactly. I reckon if I spoke to some Daughters of Khaine players, got them in a room, and I was like, I'm going to take heart renders off you, I think they'd try and fight me in the street. They'd be like, don't you talk about it. Like, they're so important. They're so important.
Yeah. And obviously the reason why they're so important is because they start off the board, and you can just drop them down outside of 9, which is just amazing for if you've got those big blocks of combat. It's going to mean that it stretches your opponent's army out a bit as they have to basically defend their home objectives whilst they push forward. So it kind of limits the amount of output that your stuff's going to be receiving, because, as I say, they're going to have to leave a little 10-man blob or a survivable little combat hero on a back objective. Because, again, they drop down outside of 9. They've got some nice spear attacks. Their barbed javelins have an additional rend when they drop down, which is -2. And then the key thing, which you've seen in a lot of games, is the move. After they've thrown their spears on a 4-up, they get to move. And with a flying unit with a 12-inch move, I want to say, super powerful, right? So they can shoot at one thing and then use that move to then go and cap somewhere else.
Normally, you see that quite often you'll see the 2 units of 5 drop down together to cap an objective and steal off someone. So it's just it's just the one. And looking at the new Morathi stuff, obviously I'll be talking about all this tonight on the Monday show. Like, taking this out of the list now, you've got all of those tricks. Yeah, but you do have, as pointed out in the chat and said by you, I mean, you do have those kind of like, especially in this meta, that scary, like low wound models, and you're not in Hagnar, so you don't have the 5-up DPR, you don't have any of that like available to you. So like it's fairly fragile, and some of those buffs that you do really need to make the whole thing like tick up is in those really small, like not very defendable characters. So it's an interesting book, the Daughters of Khaine book, because it really, as soon as you start to look at the outside of Hagnar, you go, you've got loads of weaknesses. Like, and then, and then Morathi is just such a core question for each one of those players. Even more so now, because previously it was like 480. Okay, like, it's Morathi or the Blood Sisters. It's a straight swap in this list.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a straight swap. Like, and then you keep everything. It's like, which do you prefer more? Now it's 600. So you would have to drop the 2 units of Heart Renders as well.
Wow. Almost as good as a Lariel then. Bloody hell. Wow, we're in trouble. Look out, boys. Sorry, I knew I'd get you with that one.
Exactly. So, and then you really, like in this list, you've got the Blood Sisters, who obviously can cap objectives as well, that worth 20 models. You've got the Sister Slaughter. Morathi is just one. One of the really, I don't know about you, Owen, but one of the things that has really impressed me about the Sons of Behemoth book, coming after the Ogre Mawtribes book last year, is it's really started to emphasize to me how bad monsters are in the game. Even hero monsters, even Ghoul Kings on Terrorgeist or whatever it is, there's play around them because they always count as single models.
Yeah. You're right. There's as somebody who plays Archaon at the moment, then it's pretty frustrating if you get your positioning wrong and you're just ever so slightly off from the center of the objective, and somebody just runs 2 little wallies with a 6-up save, and they just stand in front of Archaon and go, "I'm capping this objective." So
the bravest wallies in the land, though.
Yeah, they're super. They're -2 bravery, but it doesn't matter because they're not fighting you. They're just cowering, going, "Oh, this is ours for now." But yeah, monsters is a tricky one unless you take shark-based monsters, right? How nuts is it that those Alapexes are monsters?
No, they're not monsters now. They've lost the monster keyword.
Ah, really? This is great. You see, this is why.
But now they can get cover.
Oh, that's a shame.
And the turtle now doesn't give out cover; it gives out +1 save. So you can now have on turn 1 2-up save eels, which is nice.
Cool. So I don't want to. Yeah, we won't. I won't go over any ground that you're covering this evening. But I think.
Is it 2-up? Yeah, it might be. I can't remember.
We're doing that thing where we make big, broad generalizations, aren't we, Rob? Where we need to.
Yeah, I'm going to show my working out tonight. Is what I'm going to do for everyone. But yeah, I like this. I like this list doing well because it really reinforces the conversation tonight about Daughters of Khaine generally. Like it's a super fascinating book. And also, one of the lists that we haven't talked about yet, which we can maybe talk about next week, which I'm looking forward to, is still the Tzeentch list is doing well. Both of you and me picked that on on the show that we did, which we're excited about, right? Which is So it's the Archaon Tzeentch list, which we still think is very viable.
Yes. And Stefan won both of his. He's won his first 2 games. So. And that opens up such a big conversation about the Slaves to Darkness units in all the different chaos gods. So if just to cap it off for everybody, if they're interested, it's a 52-player tournament. We haven't had all of the round 2s come through yet, but we have the unbeaten list so far, just for people to get a feel for it early. We have the Stormcast list. A version of the Shootcast list that we talked about, the Triple Battalion Hurricane Raptor list. That's 9th. There's a Seraphon list. I believe that is, let me just check. That's a Fangs of Sotek Seraphon list. That beat one of our picked lists last. Chris Welfare's Hammerhall got beaten by the Seraphon, unfortunately. Then there's Lurid Haste Slanesh in 7th. Fire Slayers in 6th. Skaven, Eidneth Deakin, and then Magkin of Nurgle, and then the 2 lists that we've talked about, Daughters of Khaine and Disciples of Tzeentch. I'll put the lists in the chat if anybody wants to catch up on those. I will do.
Imagine one day how fun it will be for us to be able to do this in between tournament rounds. That's my dream. That's my dream.
Great. If we could make tournaments just be like an hour longer each day, and everyone have like an extra, I don't know.
I want 2 guys who work on the booth, and it's like we stop the coverage for the game. We're like, right, jump over to the guys. They'll explain exactly what the hell's going on. And 2 guys like, right, we've got 1 hour. Let's go.
That's crap.
Just so much noise, and then just everyone at home eating their Weetabix like, what the fuck are they saying? I want like drawing on the screen. I want and then he does this. Anyway, that'll be really fun. This has been a really fun experience. Again, the fascinating thing about lists is you can just shorthand them, right? You can just say, oh, it's this. But actually, when you really break out the tech and really understand it, you not only understand the strengths, but you also understand those weaknesses. Especially with something like this Daughter of Khaine list. And I feel even with the Tzeentch list, you're like, okay, those characters are super weak, especially in the current meta. With the Tzeentch list, okay, this army's fairly weak if you can play around it. So yeah, it's been
right. Okay, this is like tinfoil hat time then, Rob.
Yes, sir.
These 2 lists draw each other next round. Who wins?
Who?
I don't know. I'm asking you. So the Tzeentch or the Daughters?
Depends on so one of the interesting things about the Tzeentch list, I think it plays really poorly in something like Scorched Earth. Because it can't control lots of board space because all the buffs overlap next to each other, doesn't have a lot of screens, and I think this will do much better on that. If you play something,
tell you what the battle plan is. Hold on,
yeah, please
do. They're pre-selected. So the next round is Battle for the Pass.
Okay. See, that makes it real interesting. So Daughters of Khaine. So there's a big backfield that you can teleport to, but that doesn't really matter. So what happens is, so they move into the midfield, like they both jump onto those objectives. I mean, you could even be cheap if you really wanted to, and force out sorry, that's a lot of thoughts. What you could do if you're the Daughters of Khaine players, you could put the heart renders down first, which seems weird. But what you could do is then you hold both objectives in the midfield, meaning your opponent has to put something on there to take them off. The only thing you can really do with that is the pink horrors, which is excellent because then you want to countercharge with the Sisters of Slaughter and just wipe out the pink horrors. And then it's whether or not the Tzeentch list has enough output to take out both of those 2 units in a turn, which I don't think they do, ultimately. So you put the renders down, you have to push the renders off, otherwise you're just leaving points on the board, so you have to move them off with pink horrors, which are only scoring units, or maybe the Acolytes, but either way, then you countercharge with the Sisters, countercharge with the Blood Sisters, and then there's I don't know, what's that, 60, 120 wounds? No, 100 wounds that the Tzeentch list has to get through in potentially a double turn, and if it doesn't, it's game over.
Yeah, I think if anything can fight its way out of a pink horror pin, I think it's a combat list like this, right? It can do 50 wounds in a turn, right?
Yeah. So I go for Sisters, but they lose one of their characters turn 1 to Kairos. So...
Turned into a fucking spawn.
Actually, and that could be really important. If the Daughters of Khaine player stacks stuff too close, that spawn could net a lot of units. You could actually pick out. You might even be able to. That's actually again so important. You might be able to just pick out, block up one of the units of Sisters. You would have to deploy his whole army 3 inches apart from. No, not even 3, 6 inches apart from each other. So for whichever one gets hit, which would really fuck up the buffs. Because you can kill the hag.
He might just if he screens off with 1 unit of say the Sisters of Slaughter, he might and the rest of the army's behind it. Turn 1, the Tzeentch player can just go, okay, I'm going to Bella call your screening unit, and if you don't roll a 5 up, your whole army is pinned inside your deployment. So, but then he's got the teleport, I suppose.
But he also doesn't need to screen with anything because there's nothing that the Tzeentch list again can do on the first turn.
It's funny, this, Rob. This is exactly the sort of conversations I'm having with a couple of mates who are in this tournament, because we're always knowing in advance of what the matchup's going to be. It's like, what am I going to do on my turn 1? And that whole theory hammer thing kicks in.
That's what I like so much about Warhammer. Is when you get to that table, you have such a small amount of time to try and digest this information for yourself. You're at the battle plan, which is why planning stuff at home is really, really important. Donaldinho asked if that's cheating. I don't think that's the case. It's just more preparation, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think as long as you're not, I'm a little bit paranoid. Maybe I should have more faith in humanity, but the fact that people can watch games makes me think that, somebody's mate could be watching the game and then texting his mate going, "Oh, you shouldn't have done that." But maybe
his mate would have to also be good at Warhammer.
That's very true. Yeah. No, it's not. Is that cheating? Getting advice from other players? No, I suppose, Donal, when you're as good as Donal is, you don't need to seek advice from anybody else. I think that's where he's going with this.
Or arguably, when you as unlikely to take advice as Donal is, it doesn't matter. So that's the important.
When you're as obstinate as he is, then Whereas us underlings, we talk to our friends about what we're going to do, rather than being so arrogant that we think we know best. I think that's the learning there, right?
Yeah, wow. Donal's on a hot streak. He hasn't lost a game since February. Well done. I'm really proud of you. Owen, this has been a lovely time. Thank you. I hope everyone in the chat has enjoyed it. It's been really, really fun.
I've had a good time. Yeah, it's been fun. And we get to learn again, right?
Well, it's important. I actually think some of this has been super valuable. When tournaments come back around, I'm going to feel really prepped for a lot of things. Especially I think maybe because the games... There's maybe not as many games. You really core analysing some of the information and structure of the game. So that's what I'm doing anyway, and I'm enjoying it. So yeah, it was a pleasure. You got any shout-outs? Anyone you want to big up before we head out?
I think he'll be watching. I'll just big up my mate Cole because he got a really good win last night in this tournament. So I'll big up Cole with his Skaven. And yeah, that's it really. Cole, I'm not going to make any more political statements like I did last week because that's all.
Oh, yeah, I remember. You nailed it though. So well done. Oh no, I loved it. Great work. I want to say thank you to everyone on the honest-wargamer Patreon, and of course everyone on the podcast. Please stay hydrated and look after yourselves. Also, if you haven't done so yet, please watch the Queen's Gambit because it's brilliant, and you should have a great time watching it. And the outfits are great. And thank you, of course, to the Twitch chat, and YouTube chat, but Twitch chat specifically: Zavale, Donaldinho, Matt Trulsock. I'm just going to say that. Scrivo. Donaldinho, yes.
I think it's Matt Rules Okay. Sorry, Rob, but it is Matt Rules Okay.
Definitely dyslexic. I'm learning that live on Elf Joe. Oh, nice. Nick asked, "What up, Battle Joe? Fuck you, buddies." Right, everyone have a great day. Look after yourselves. Please do join us tonight. We've got an exciting show. We're going to be looking at 3 of the 5 new things that were from the book. So we're going to be looking at the Idneth, the Daughters of Khaine, and we're going to be looking at the Slaves to Darkness stuff. We'll be doing the Stormcast and Cities things next week. So please do join us tonight. It'll be 7 p.m. Really looking forward to that. Thanks very much, Owen. See you later, everyone. Have a great day, and